You're listening to the Do Something More podcast, and this is episode 1, Introduction to the Podcast. Welcome to the Do Something More podcast, a service-oriented show where we highlight the helpers who inspire us all to do something more. I'm your host, Melissa Draper. Thank you so much for being here. Hello, and welcome to the introduction episode of the Do Something More podcast. Thank you so much for joining me here today and for listening to this new venture that I'm undertaking with this podcast. If you are listening right now, you are being part of something that has been 16 years in the making. 16 years, a dream for me. So thank you so much for being part of that. I would like to share exactly what does that mean and what will this podcast entail. So 16 years in the making, what does that mean? Well, this is not my first time behind the microphone. I first started learning about broadcasting as a student at Brigham Young University, where I got my degree in communications and broadcast journalism, and also worked for the radio station that was there on our college campus. And I fell in love with radio broadcasting at that time. I loved every aspect of it and really grew and learned a lot as a student, even earned some student awards while I was there, and enjoyed that experience. And then I graduated, and at my first job that I had after I graduated college, I worked at a state college doing some public relations for an organization there. And one of my responsibilities I had was to produce and host an online radio show. So it was with an online network that was like a radio station. You could listen to it 24 hours a day, anytime, but it was all through the internet. So it was kind of the beginnings of podcasting. And during this time, this was about when podcasting was starting to actually be a little bit of a thing, before a lot of people even knew what it was. So I did this little weekly half-hour radio show, and I fell in love with that form of broadcasting. I fell in love with doing a more specific show and with interviewing one or two guests and diving into different aspects. And I really loved it. It was a small part of my job, but it was my favorite part of my job. And so while I was there, I succeeded with that again. I got an impressive listening audience that was clicking in and listening each week, and also became the number one listened to show on that network. So I had the added success combined with loving what I was doing, and knew that I had found something that was definitely a niche for me, a little something that I would enjoy. And so then after working at that job for about a year and a half, I became a mother. And at that time, I chose to stay home and to focus my energies on motherhood. So that is what I've been doing with a lot of my time, a lot of my energy the last 16 years. I have 4 children now. I've been married to my husband for about 17 and a half years, and have immersed myself in motherhood and enjoyed that. But now I'm pulling out those dreams that I've had and revisiting the joy that I've always felt behind the microphone. So why do something more, though? How did that come about as me wanting to do as the subject for this podcast? Well, something else I have spent a lot of my time doing in the last 16 years, besides motherhood, is volunteering. And I have found so much joy in that. I've volunteered in a myriad of ways in my kids' schools, in the community, with civic organizations, and also with my church, a lot of time giving service there. And I've fell in love with service and volunteering. It's something that's brought a lot of joy to my life. And as I've gone in these different organizations, I'm just a normal mom that's kind of said yes and shown up and wanted to help when something needed to be done. So I don't want to make it sound like I've done anything huge or big. I've done what I see a lot of people do. And so as I've volunteered in these different capacities, I've seen and noticed the stories of other individuals and the things that they do. And I've been so impressed to hear the stories and the whys behind these individuals that give wholeheartedly to their communities in a variety of different ways. Sometimes it's just a passion that they have or something they've always felt passionate about. Sometimes there was a need that really struck them to the core or hit their heart in a special way and they wanted to help out. And sometimes it's tragedies or hard things they've experienced in their own lives and they've wanted to help others who are going through similar circumstances or similar tragedies. And it's a myriad of ways and reasons why people decide to go and give of their time in serving and in helping, and really with no thought of getting anything back for it, just for the joy of being able to help and serve in a unique way. So I want to tell those stories. I want to tell the stories of individuals that have found some purpose and some joy in serving in different ways. And I want to share those stories on this podcast. And also, as you heard the tagline at the beginning of the show, we highlight the helpers. So that's the first part of this podcast. And then the second part is highlighting them because they inspire us all to do something more. I would love to use this podcast to also inspire anyone listening to find joy in serving as well. And I myself have found so much joy in serving in a myriad of ways in my life. Service has helped me keep moving forward. Sometimes when times were difficult or I couldn't see clearly the way ahead, service has given me a way to just keep moving forward and to trust in the future. Service has helped me heal from hard things that I've experienced in my own life. I have found quite literally healing through service. Service has helped me find purpose in my life. Sometimes when I've lost a little bit or didn't feel I had a purpose, service has always helped me find it again. Service has helped me connect with others, form friendships and bonds, and I could keep going. It's given me so many things. So that's the other part of this podcast is I want others to find the same joy that I've found in serving. I know many times as individuals, I know this is not unique to me or to even just a few. Many times there are things that we have felt or had thoughts about wanting to help with, or sometimes there's a cause that just stirs up a little more passion in us maybe than it does in those around us, or sometimes we hear something or we hear a story or we hear a tragedy and we think, I want to help with that. But many times we don't know exactly what to do, how to give, how to reach out to someone we love or care about, how to contribute to a cause that means something to us. And so that's my purpose in highlighting the helpers and highlighting different things is hopefully as you listen or as others listen to this show, that it can give you a little spark of an idea or prompt you to know how to act on the thoughts that you've had to want to serve, to help, and to give back. And again, I really want to emphasize on this show that it does not have to be huge or all encompassing. Again, the service that I've done hasn't been anything big. It's just been little things and time here and there, or even maybe a little money given to something that matters to me or to my family. And those good things that we do, they don't have to be huge. They can be simple. And I have learned for myself that even just the little bit that we do give can make a difference in our lives and also in the lives of those that we are wanting to serve and to reach out to. So, those are some of the purposes behind this show. I'm filling a dream that I've had for 16 years. I'm telling the wonderful stories that I think need to be told of those that are giving and serving and helping in ways they've felt inspired to do. And I'm hoping to help those that listen learn and feel how service can be a joy in their own life and get simple ideas for how they can give back in their own lives and the things that they're doing. So I invite you to join me each week for these 30-minute episodes of podcasts. Sometimes there will be interviews where I interview individuals, and sometimes it will be solo shows. Because the reason behind that is because I love to tell stories. So I am going to unashamedly use this microphone and this venue to tell some of the stories that I've experienced with service. I love telling stories, and I also love using them to share a message or illustrate a point. I'm sure my children, my husband could attest to that. I do it often. So I want to do this on the podcast as well. So that's why there'll be some interviewing shows, some solo shows. But each week, I hope to give you something to think about and also just to share some fun and some joy and to tell some good stories that need to be told and to be shared. So I invite you to join me here each week, learn about service and giving back, learn about what others are doing, feel inspired for what to do in your own life. And before I end this episode, I would also invite and encourage you to follow our social media podcast pages. We are on Instagram at dosomethingmore.podcast, or you can find us on Facebook at the Do Something More podcast. So those are two ways you can follow us to get updates on the shows that are being uploaded and highlights on some of the things that we're covering and following along here at Do Something More. So thank you so much for joining me on this introduction episode. I look forward to spending more time with you, sharing more stories, and inspiring you through the service that others give. Thanks for joining me here. I'll see you next time.